3 a.m. devastating moments, when prayer defied death for King Hezekiah. Shocking truth revealed. In the stillness of the night, a king lay on his deathbed. His heart was racing, struggling against the grip of fatal illness. The air in the room crackled with tension, thick and suffocating. Darkness enveloped the palace, where fear slipped through the cracks like a silent thief. Everyone whispered tales of doom, and shadows danced anxiously across the cold stone walls. King Hezekiah was a ruler admired by his people, but now, even the bravest warriors feared for him. They knew the name of his sickness, a disease that had claimed many, leaving only devastation in its wake. But there was something more. An echo of mysterious possibilities hung in the air. It all started when strange signs appeared in the sky. A crimson streak flashed across the heavens, igniting rumors of the end. Old men shook their heads, young mothers clutched their children in fear as they gazed skyward. Was it a prophecy? An omen? People in distant villages claimed to have seen an unusual comet, bright and angry, illuminating the night, a beacon of impending judgment. Whispers of divine intervention floated softly among the townsfolk. If only Hezekiah would pray, if only faith could save him. As the king's life hung by a thread, he faced the chilling specter of death. His hands, once strong, trembled with frailty. Deep within, he clung to a thread of hope, a desperate plea to the heavens. In his heart, he couldn't shake off the feeling that a divine response was close, just beyond the veil. But was it enough? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Back in the palace, a hush fell over the room. The candles flickered, casting eerie shadows that painted grim figures on the walls. Suddenly, a voice broke the stillness. A fierce plea rose from Hezekiah's lips. Lord, remember how I have walked before you faithfully. Each word was a lifeline, each breath, a silent scream to the gods beyond. And as he prayed, a sudden chill swept through the air. Time seemed to halt. The watchers outside the chamber leaned in closer, eyes wide with disbelief. Had heaven just answered? The king's eyes blinked open, strength surging through him like a flood. Can prayer truly defy death? Could miracles happen at the darkest hour? The world outside held its breath, waiting for the truth that could shatter or save everything. What was coming next? Only time would tell. A flash of light erupted in the dim room, momentarily blinding those who stood vigil over the king. When the brightness faded, gasps echoed from the gathered nobles. King Hezekiah sat upright, an intensity in his gaze that was unmistakable. It felt as if the weight of the world had lifted, though beneath that resurgent strength lay an unshakable uncertainty. His chest heaved as he searched for words, but hesitation clung like fog. Outside, the night remained still, the stars like distant witnesses holding their breath, as if they understood the gravity swirling before them. Whispers ran through the crowd, miracle or madness? Hezekiah could feel his heart pounding, a drum echoing through the silence. Every eye locked onto him, filled with hope mingled with skepticism. What did I do? He stammered, his voice hoarse yet steadying. A wave of confusion hit him. Had he truly received a message from the gods? Or was it simply the delirium of fever? In the shadowy corners of the room, voices carried dread. The high priest, flanked by his advisors, exchanged concerned looks. Your Majesty, he began slowly, cautiously. The signs in the sky, they are foreboding. We dare not ignore them. What will you have me do? Hezekiah shot back, fire raging in his eyes. Am I to cower beneath omens? I have fought for our people. For our faith. Whoever marks my death is mistaken. The anger surged through him, pushing away the remnants of sickness, if only for a moment. Just then, a deafening boom rumbled outside, a low growl of thunder, fierce and unprecedented. It was as if the heavens themselves shuddered at his defiance. The soldiers on guard shuffled nervously, sensing a shift, an energy unlike anything they'd previously known. Suddenly, the doors burst open. A scrappy messenger, gasping for breath, stumbled into the chamber. Sweat dripped down his forehead as he struggled to align his thoughts. "My king! The cities have seen the comet. People are gathering, they demand answers." A thick silence enveloped the room. Hezekiah felt the weight of the kingdom upon him, the stirrings of an uprising teetering on the brink. The fiery resolve in his gut shifted to fear. What if the omen truly meant devastation? The air grew thick with tension. He felt the solidity of the room beginning to waver around him. "If they are in motion, if fear has taken hold, we must act." Hezekiah's voice rang out, now tinged with urgency, mingled with the hope of his earlier prayer. "A call to arms? Or a call to the gods?" interjected the high priest, his face pale and drawn. "It is in these moments that faith is tested, king. We face fury in the skies, and fury in our hearts. What should he choose?" The air crackled with despair and determination. He registered the fear etched in the faces of everyone around him. Could he rally them toward hope or lead them to ruin? As he wrestled with the weight of kingship against prophecies looming over him, the candle flames danced wildly, whispering secrets only a king could hear. A decision had to be made, and the choice hung precariously. Was he ready to confront the storm, or would he seek sanctuary in prayer again? The people awaited his command as the night deepened like an encroaching shadow. Just then, as if in response to his doubts, the very earth beneath them trembled slightly. A rumble of discontent reached Hezekiah's ears, merging with the distant cries of the gathering crowd. Was this the moment meant to change everything? With the weight of the realm upon him, Hezekiah prepared to step into the unknown. But as he opened his mouth to speak, the ground shook even more violently beneath them, and a chilling voice echoed through the chamber, sending a shiver down his spine. "What have you awakened?" A new revelation, an undeniable truth, was on the horizon, and with it came a terrible question: was the kingdom ready for what was to come? The chamber fell silent, the oppressive weight of that ghostly voice hanging like an unseen shroud. King Hezekiah's heart raced, pounding with the urgency of impending doom. Panic rippled through the eyes of his nobles, their gazes flitting nervously, searching for reassurance in his expression. Could he be their anchor, or was he merely a reflection of their fears? Fear gripped Hezekiah, and each breath felt like a battle. What was that?" he gasped, glancing at the high priest. The man's mouth trembled, his usual certainty evaporating like mist. "A warning," he finally rasped. "Warning? From whom?" The king's voice rose, teetering between frustration and fear, matching the chaotic rhythm of his racing thoughts. He stepped forward, adrenaline surging through him. "What have I awakened?" The words seemed to echo against the cold stone walls of the chamber, taunting him with uncertainty. A flicker of shadows moved at the corner of his vision, drawing his attention. Around the edges of the room, his loyal guards straightened, their swords glimmering under the wavering candlelight, waiting at the ready. But even they could sense the trembling unease in their king. "Your Majesty," the messenger spluttered, interrupting the eerie stillness, "the people, they are restless. The comet, they believe it is a sign, a harbinger of change or chaos." His eyes darted frantically, betraying the fear coursing through him. "I will not let them believe they're abandoned," Hezekiah bellowed, addressing the crowd, his words like a spark in dry grass. "I will stand and face whatever threat besets us." A mixture of cheers and uncertain murmurs rippled through the chamber, hope mingling with the terror. But inside, Hezekiah shivered. What was he truly inviting? "Then you must seek guidance, my king," the high priest urged, desperation creeping into his voice. "A sacrifice may appease the forces at play." "It is your only sacrifice?" The very word felt like a dagger lodged in Hezekiah's chest. "No lives will be lost while I breathe." Yet, beneath his denial, that cold voice coiled tightly again, whispering dark truths. Was it his life that might be the price? Out of nowhere, another tremor hit harder this time. The candle flames bent and twisted, as if caught in an unseen gale. A low rumble echoed through the castle, the intensity in the air thick enough to swallow the breath of those present. The walls vibrated, dust raining down like ash from forgotten cataclysms. This was no ordinary storm. Wild-eyed, Hezekiah cast a desperate look at his trusted warrior, Captain Arion. "What do we do?" His voice was a strangled whisper. "Rally the citizens, my liege," Arion said firmly, exuding a fierce resolve. "If they believe in your strength, they will follow. You must lead them against this fear, or it will consume us all." The world around Hezekiah felt as if it were collapsing, yet a flicker of clarity surfaced amid that chaos. Maybe it was time to embrace the storm instead of hiding from it. "Gather the people at the great square," he commanded, raising one fist as a beacon of defiance. "We will confront the darkness together." Voices erupted, filled with a mix of anxiety and renewed courage. Hezekiah felt the tide wash over him, splashes of urgency mixing with hope. As he turned to lead the way, the ominous force residing beneath the earth shifted again, whispering promises of chaos and certainty. But he could not waver. Not now. He had a kingdom to save, a path to carve through impending disaster, whatever that meant. Yet in the distance, as he strode confidently forward, an uneasy thought lingered like a shadow. Was it the end they faced? Or merely the beginning of something far more sinister? Every heartbeat felt like a countdown, each step leading them closer to an unknown reckoning. The unsettling question loomed overhead: what awaited them in the depths of that foreboding night? The streets of the castle thrummed with tension, the air electric as Hezekiah marched forward. The distant flickering of torches illuminated faces filled with uncertainty, brows knitted tight as their whispers buzzed like an angry swarm. "Gather around!" His call cut through the murmur, a command ringing out like a bell in the night. "I need to speak to you all." The crowd thickened, drawn by that urgent plea. Eyes shone with a mix of fear, hope, and desperation, reflecting the pale light of the stars overhead. He could see them, the laborers, the shopkeepers, parents clutching children, all expecting their king to weave a miracle against the looming chaos. But deep down, Hezekiah felt that familiar cold creep back in, pulling at his resolve. He wrestled with it, trying to push the fear away, to find strength in their collective hearts. "Listen to me," he cried, raising his arms to silence the roaring fear. "A comet streaks across our skies, and while it may feel like a harbinger of doom, we are not powerless. We are not lost." The words surged forth, alive like a fire blazing in the night. Yet behind that fierce declaration, doubt laced his very bones. This was not just a spiritual challenge, there were forces at play he didn't yet understand. What had he truly awakened? A lifetime of silence couldn't hide beneath his bravado. Panic clawed at his chest. Then, a sudden shift silenced his thoughts. The ground shook beneath them, a low growl rumbling from the depths of the earth. The crowd gasped, stumbling back in uncertainty as if the very world had protested their gathering. Hezekiah could feel his heart race, every muscle tightening like a coiled spring. "Stay with me! Do not flee!" he shouted, but inside he was screaming just as loud. Was there indeed something far beyond their comprehension waiting just beneath the surface? Beside him, Captain Arion stood firm, eyes blazing with determination. "We must show them we are strong. It is now or never," he urged, scanning the crowd with an intensity that demanded their faith. Hezekiah nodded, inhaling deeply. If chaos was their fate, then they would confront it head-on. "We stand together," he declared again, his voice soaring. "United against whatever darkness dares to emerge from this night." But as they rallied, the shadows flickered at the edges of his vision. The echoes of the ghostly warnings haunted him, whispering through the air, threatening to engulf their resolve. It felt like they were standing at the precipice of something monumental. And just then, a figure broke through the crowd, cloaked in shadow. Breathing heavily, the old seer approached, her wrinkled face alight but her eyes dulled by a vision only she understood. "King!" she croaked, her voice hoarse yet compelling. "The comet, it brings not just a harbinger of doom, but a choice that could lead to salvation or destruction." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. The crowd stilled, their breath collectively caught, the weight of her message settling over them. Hezekiah's stomach knotted tightly. What choice? What sort of sacrifice was demanded of him now? Before he could ask, the ground shook violently again, this time sending dust and small stones tumbling from the castle walls. Panic rippled through the crowd anew. Fear flooded in once more, and faces turned to Hezekiah, imploring him to lead. "Trust me," he shouted, desperate to reclaim the moment. Besides the looming threat, there was something else, something ripe for the taking, simmering in the air, a current of power waiting to be harnessed. But the truth remained elusive as he faced the terrified eyes around him. "What must I give to save us all?" As he voiced the question, thunder rolled in the distance, and the stars twinkled with foreboding. Shadows danced in the corners of his heart, and an unnerving certainty gnawed at his resolve. The night was far from over, and the reckoning was just beginning. What would he sacrifice to quell the forces rising against them? The ground trembled again, this time more violently. Hezekiah fought to stay upright, the cries of his people bubbling up like a torrent, weaving through the air in a cacophony of terror. Panic surged as the shadows flickered and coiled around their gathering, snaking into the hearts of the crowd. Arion stepped closer, his broad shoulders casting an imposing shadow. "We can't let fear win." Hezekiah heard the rasp in his voice, the fight still lingering there despite the chaos. "We have to confront whatever's beneath." "Confront it?" The seer's voice trembled, echoing a sorcery older than the very stones enclosing them. "No, King, you must choose it." Her eyes were wide, startlingly clear for a moment, piercing right through the dread enveloping them all. "The comet has come to collect its price as not mere blood but the essence of what binds you to life itself." A wave of unease seeped into Hezekiah's bones. The quiet desperation of the townsfolk loomed heavy in the air. Mothers clung to children as if they could shield them with their very existence. The fears and uncertainties they had all carried now coalesced into something dark and tangible, something Hezekiah felt curling around his heart. "Essence?" he murmured, confusion masking his rising fear. "What do you mean?" "Sacrifice. A choice." The seer's breath came fast, and her voice was frantic. "You can sacrifice your own spirit, your very essence, and shield your people, or you may choose the lives of a few above the many. Either path leads to brutal consequences." His throat went dry. He could feel countless eyes shooting daggers of expectation and fear at him. The weight of their hopes pressed on him, striking harder than any armor could defend against. What could he give to ensure their safety? Just then, the ground trembled once more violent this time, tilting the crowd like a forest swaying in a storm. The ground beneath them pulsed, vibrating with an ancient energy that seemed eager to consume. "Make haste!" a voice cried from the fringes, and the crowd shifted unsettled. "King, you must decide," Arion urged, gripping Hezekiah's shoulder tightly. "What will you choose? Yourself or them?" The question echoed painfully in the silence that followed. Every face gleamed with fear, yet all bore the imprint of unwavering hope. Hezekiah clenched his fists, wrestling with the anguish gnawing at him. In that moment, time slowed. He glanced at the stars, those distant guardians of the night, their gleaming eyes promising both fate and freedom. He could almost feel them sigh, as if reminding him of his role. The ruler, the savior, the pivot upon which lives turned. Yet, within that realization came a sickening dread. Who would he choose? And as if responding to his turmoil, a thunderclap split the sky, lightning illuminating the grounds in sharp, fleeting brilliance, throwing the crowd into stark relief. Faces twisted in shock, some kneeling, others looking skyward, praying for deliverance. Hezekiah stared into the eyes of the seer. "Tell me what to do!" But before she could respond, a blaring crack of thunder shattered the night, and the shadows shifted again. They began to take shape, tendrils morphing into a towering figure cloaked in darkness. From its depths, a voice echoed, deep and booming. "The choice is yours, O King! But beware, for a single step in the wrong direction will unravel all that you hold dear." Every ounce of dread surged back as a chilling recognition sank in. The storm was already upon them. Clutching the weight of impending doom, Hezekiah felt the tears of the sky spill down upon him. "Choose, Hezekiah!" Arion shouted above the din. Panic swelled, and the shadows surged, ready to claim their due. As the crowd gasped collectively, Hezekiah's heart raced. In that fragmented moment, the cost of salvation loomed before him, ready to be counted. What would he sacrifice to save his people? As doubts clawed at his resolve, the towering figure in shadow lurched forward, sending a wave of fear crashing through him, forcing him toward a choice he wasn't ready to face. There, on the precipice of uncertainty, Hezekiah steeled himself. But just then, a howl broke through the thrumming air, a heartbeat away from despair. What was rising in the depths? And what would it demand of him before dawn broke their haunted night? Hezekiah felt the ground quake beneath him, a violent reminder of the unleashed horror lurking just below the surface. The shadows twisted and writhed like snakes, almost as if they were alive, hungry for his decision. His mind spun as panic exploded in his chest. Each heartbeat pulsed with a reality he couldn't escape. A choice lay before him, heavy with consequences. There was a sudden stillness in the air, a hush that wrapped around the crowd like a thin mist. Faces turned to him, eyes wide with fear, glimmering with the last shimmers of hope. He cursed the weight of their gazes, the expectations that bore down upon him. It felt like a noose tightening, squeezing the breath from his lungs, leaving him gasping. The seer's voice trembled in his memory. The comet, its price is your essence. What kind of essence could possibly appease a creature born from darkness? Could he actually bear the thought of sacrificing himself? But what of his people? The cries of terrified children rang like bells in his ears. Then, without warning, the towering shadow lunged closer. Hezekiah took an involuntary step back, fear flooding through him. All at once, whispers surged from the shadows, a grotesque harmony, intertwining words so sweet yet laced with poison. It was a requiem for those he loved. He winced as visions of pleading faces filled his mind, reminders that every second counted. Face it, Hezekiah. Arion's shout broke through the murmurs, a fierce anchor in the tempest. You stand between the abyss and your people. You must act. With steely resolve, Hezekiah took a breath, channeling the despair into something fierce. I will not let you take my people, he roared, voice shaking the very air. The shadows recoiled momentarily, surprised by the defiance intruding upon their dominion. What will it be, then? That booming voice resonated, echoing through his bones, mocking his very existence. Will you pay in pain or in blood? He knew the answer lay tangled beyond, hidden under layers of truth and sacrifice. The comet wasn't just a celestial body. It was a harbinger of reckoning. And behind that dark visage lay a choice far beyond one life or many. It was about what made him who he was. From a distance, the seer's eyes locked onto his, burning with urgency. Listen, King! Open your heart. Only through pain can one find strength. With those words, something flickered within him, a ghost of memories, of laughter shared by a warm fireside, of hands holding his while facing darkness. He felt the connection, the essence of every life woven into his own, a tapestry of love, bravery, and sacrifice. As he stood on the edge, facing the tempest, the shadows began to whirl and twist in a frenzy, sensing his change and resolve. They pulsed with an insatiable hunger, beckoning him or perhaps warning him of what was to come. I choose, Hezekiah managed, his voice steadier than he felt. I choose to protect them. His heart thundered as the sky split with lightning, illuminating the manic shadows that reached hungrily toward him. The entity paused, the dark mass hesitating. Did it truly recoil? Or was it contemplating? He staggered, the energy around him shifting. He sensed the primal urge to offer a sacrifice, but would it be his own essence or something more? He closed his eyes, vision swirling, and there it was, the storm swirling within, shaking his soul, as he gathered the strength that had coiled around fear, ready to release the weight of his decision. But just then, another howl echoed, deeper and more sinister, rising from the depths below, a cacophony of anguish that clawed at his sanity. What have you awakened? He whispered, knowing in that moment, a far greater darkness than he had anticipated was stirring. The unseen presence seemed to surge before him, breathing madness into the air, demanding more than he could fathom. Could he truly stand firm against this looming horror? Or would the dawn reveal the cost of his choice? The eerie howl echoed again, without remorse, demanding an answer, and deep down, Hezekiah knew one truth: this was only the beginning. What would emerge from his decision? The howl faded, but its echo lingered cruelly in the marrow of Hezekiah's bones. A tide of fear washed over the onlookers, a collective intake of breath shattered by anxiety. They stood frozen, their faces drawn tight, clinging to unfulfilled hope. Hezekiah felt their dread in the air, heavy and suffocating. "Which path will you take?" The voice boomed again, sharper, more vicious this time, as if the shadows had fed on his hesitation. The ground trembled beneath him anew, shaking his resolve. In that moment, he questioned himself, his heart racing in a frantic rhythm. What if this darkness is too great to confront? Suddenly, the shadows twisted, forming grotesque shapes that took on the contours of his loved ones, Arion, the seer, even the children of his village. Their faces warped into expressions of horror, mouths silent yet screaming, pleading for his strength. "No!" Hezekiah shouted, desperately shaking his head. Clenching his fists, he focused on the specter of hope in the back of his mind. "I won't let you fill my spirit with fear. I am not yours to consume." The shadows rippled at his declaration, as though tasting his defiance. A thunderous laugh echoed, rhythmic and mocking, vibrating in the pit of his stomach. "Foolish king! Do you really think you can resist? This is your reckoning." He sensed something shift in the air. A deeper darkness writhed beneath, pulsing with malevolence. It was more than shadows now, it was the essence of despair itself. Something was awakening, rising to the surface with a vengeance, and Hezekiah could feel it beckoning, urging him to yield. "Your resolve was futile, but your essence will still feed the abyss." The voice boomed, shaking the heavens. The clouds above crackled ominously, swirling, agitated. It felt as though the very fabric of reality unraveled around him. Raising his hands, palms upward as if offering himself to the void, Hezekiah felt an overwhelming tide of emotions stampeding through him. Fear mingled with righteousness, but beneath that was something else, a spark ignited by hope. Strength, yes, but strength fueled by sacrifice. The seer's words had ignited a blaze within him, a call to action stronger than the dark. He remembered the warmth of those he loved, the laughter shared, camaraderie built under the sky. "Whatever it takes, whatever the cost, I will protect them." With a roar that thundered across the landscape, Hezekiah surged forward, feeling the air crackle with energy. As he did, the shadows lunged, hungry for the essence he now willingly offered. "Take it!" he shouted, raising his voice above the tumult. "I will give you what you seek, but let my people go." A blinding light erupted from within him, cascading across the night like a comet blazing through a terrible darkness. The shadows writhed in agony, their forms contorting and stretching under the force of the light. There was an almost tangible scream of anger that rattled the very earth beneath him. In that moment, time seemed to freeze. All around him, the world dimmed, darkness and light battling for dominance. Hezekiah felt a surge of energy, his heart raced, pumping with unyielding resolve, and the essence of his love, his hope, his soul surged into the ether. But just when he believed the darkness might falter, a new howl erupted from the depths. This sound was a siren of ancient fury, awakening the echoes of vengeful spirits. A form began to coalesce within the storm, massive, unfathomable, a titan made of nightmares that throbbed with ancient malevolence. Hezekiah's breath caught in his throat. The shadows may have waned for a moment, but something worse was rising. What have I unleashed? His heart sank as realization dawned. This had been merely the initial wave of fury. He was now tangled in something far larger than he had ever imagined possible. As the towering figure emerged, Hezekiah braced himself. Would his essence be enough to stave off this oncoming darkness? Or had he only opened a door that should have remained shut? The air crackled with impending doom as he stood transfixed, the weight of his choice pressing down on him. What had he awakened? And would his sacrifice ultimately protect his people, or plunge them into further despair? With dread pooling in his gut, he prepared for the showdown that lay ahead, and deep within, the question lingered, Had they truly seen the worst of it yet? The Titan loomed before Hezekiah, a swirling mass of darkness that seemed to absorb the very light around it. The air thickened, an oppressive weight settling over the landscape. Shadows twisted and shrieked, reflecting the chaos unleashed by his defiance. He could feel the anticipation of the crowd behind him, their breaths held in collective terror, each one another stake in the balance of fate. Hezekiah's mind raced. The colossal figure infused his dread with an urgency that gnawed at his heart. Those twisted echoes, once his loved ones, now merged into an overwhelming howl. "What do you want from me?" he shouted, forcing his voice to rise above the cacophony. A voice boomed from the Titan, calm yet filled with the promise of havoc. "Your submission, King! Kneel, and your precious village may yet survive." Hezekiah recoiled. The very proposition twisted like a knife in his gut. Kneel? Give in to this abomination that fed on fear? It was anathema to the oath he had sworn his duty was to protect, to fight, not to bend. Never! He sparked with incandescent fervor. "I may be afraid, but I will not submit." With each refusal, the Titan trembled, its very presence flickering as if unsure. Was it fear that coursed through its cursed foundation? Hezekiah seized the moment, channeling the burning light that still flickered within him. "Come for me then!" His shout cut through the din. "I will never forsake my people!" The Titan roared again, a sound that flooded with fury, and lunged. A shadowy limb, darker than the depths of night, reached for him. Hezekiah stood firm, heart hammering, hands trembling. He felt the pulse of the magic he had summoned, glowing still, even brighter with his resolve. In the very moment he thought the end could be imminent, Hezekiah thrust his hands forward, releasing a surge of light that pierced the thick shroud of darkness. The ground exploded outward, and everyone shielded their eyes from the burst of brilliance. The Titan screamed, shattering into motes of shadow that flickered and hissed like snakes. Its essence shrieked as it fractured, rippling waves of despair cascading away. Yet, in that same instant, a torrent of shadows clawed back together, darker and more fierce than ever. "You think this is the end?" it thundered, reforming, angrier and more powerful. "You've only stoked the fire." Helplessness clawed at Hezekiah as realization dawned like a funeral bell. The relentless cycle of violence was bound by the very act of rebellion he had chosen. He had thought that sacrifice would quench this beast, yet now it seemed to feed into its insatiable hunger. The onlookers trembled around him, unable to break free from the paralyzing fear. He heard whispers of doubt, gasps for hope. It seeped into his bones. Did they see him as a hero? A fool? Each person behind him was another reason to fight, yet the Shadow Titan's roar commanded the heavens. "Your power is nothing," it taunted, unmistakably intent on consuming more than just his spirit. "I will take all that you hold dear." "No!" The very word felt chained to his breath, but he stood taller, squaring his shoulders. "I have fought to find meaning in my struggle, and I'll fight until my last breath for those who cannot stand against you." Suddenly, he opened his heart completely, allowing every ounce of pure intent to flood the battlefield. As the light began to dim again, a faint glow returned, distinct and brilliant. But the growing shadow still loomed ominously. What is happening?" Panic crept into his thoughts, almost like a whisper from the core of him, raising questions louder than the beast that still raged. The Titan paused, uncertainty etched into its massive form. Had it felt something, some shift in his resolve? Or had it only decided how deeply it could shatter them all? As dread hung in the air, Hezekiah felt a pull of familiarity from somewhere deep within. Was his struggle against the darkness? Or was the darkness also a part of him? As the shadows twisted around them once more, a chilling thought burst forth: what if he could harness its very essence against it? The fight was far from over, and he realized that understanding this darkness could prove to be his gravest risk of all. How much deeper was the abyss, and would he have the heart to venture into it for the sake of his people? With resolve cementing in his chest, Hezekiah grasped the gleaming light tighter. The fate of his village rested precariously on the outcome of the choices yet to come. Would this madness lead him to win, or would it take him to the brink of inevitable ruin? The Titan's form fluctuated, its mass rippling like oily water, each undulation echoing the collective fear that had seeped deep into the bones of the onlookers. Hezekiah's heart raced. Was he truly at the brink of understanding this shadow, or was he simply lost in a delusion, clinging to hope as destruction closed in? Face the truth. The Titan bellowed, its voice resonating like thunder. You are nothing but a flickering candle in the winds of eternity. I shall extinguish your light and revel in your suffering. It swung an enormous arm, and shadows coiled around it, wrapping tighter with each pulse of anger, each scream of menace vibrating through the ground beneath them. Hezekiah staggered, feeling the ground rumble beneath him, yet he straightened his spine and tightened his grip on the light. Within his heart, a fire ignited, an ember fueled by the desperation of those who depended on him. Could it purify the darkness, or was it merely a useless flicker against insurmountable odds? Before he could fully process his fear, the shadows lunged. He barely had time to react. Instinct took over as he threw his hands forward. I want to hide. I will not be swallowed by you. A flare of light erupted from his palms, cutting through the darkness like a knife through rotting flesh. The impact sent a shockwave rippling through the air, and for an instant, the Titan faltered, shadows peeling away like scabs revealing fresh skin beneath. The crowd gasped as the beam of light momentarily illuminated the darkness, revealing twisted faces etched in horror and disbelief. But just as quickly, the light began to dim, the shadows snaking back with renewed vigor. The Titan laughed, a guttural, bone-chilling sound that sent shivers skittering down Hezekiah's spine. You think your light can save you? It only feeds my power. Desperation clawed at Hezekiah. He had fought so hard to push back the inevitable, yet this creature thrived on his courage, twisting it, using it against him. He felt the shadows stretching toward him, a cold grasp that threatened to close around his throat. Fight! A voice screamed from within the crowd, breaking through the panic. He realized it was Bethany, her eyes wide with fear yet aflame with conviction. You are stronger than this darkness, stronger than it knows. Hezekiah's heart swelled at the reminder of hope. He blinked, realizing that if he could focus on that light, he could push the shadows back not just for himself, but for everyone. The realization surged through him like fire racing through dry grass. The Titan screeched, the sound piercing the veil of the air with violent force. What is this? Your resolve cannot save you from the abyss. Then let me dive into it. Hezekiah yelled, challenging the abyss itself. He recalled the faces of his loved ones, the laughter of children, the warmth of his village. These images lit a fire within him. He understood now this wasn't just a battle against an external darkness, but also an internal one. Taking a deep breath, he steeled himself. He poured everything, every wish, every dream, and every shred of love into the light. The energy surged wildly, bursting forth as a flood, illuminating the battlefield in brilliant radiance that pushed against the encroaching shadows. The Titan howled as the light engulfed it, wrapping around its monstrous form like chains forged from purity. No! No! It howled in fragmented panic. This cannot be. But something stirred inside Hezekiah, a deeper understanding of the darkness around him. Perhaps if he could integrate rather than annihilate, he could turn this momentum into a weapon. Suddenly, the shadows felt less like a threat and more like threads he could weave into something greater. Rise up with me! Hezekiah shouted, extending his hands to the villagers, their fearful gazes now turning into something else: courage, tenacity, resilience. Together, we can confront this darkness. It thrives on our fear, but united, we can extinguish it. The villagers began to chant, their voices curling into the air, weaving a tapestry of hope. It washed over Hezekiah, charging him, filling him with energy beyond his own. As the Titan writhed and shook, the collective power surged, each person igniting their own light within. But uncertainty still loomed. What if this unity proved to be a double-edged sword? As they stepped forward, Hezekiah felt the ground beneath them shift again, an ominous rumble reverberating through the fear-laden air. Could their light truly conquer this ancient terror, or would it shatter under the Titan's wrath? The echoes of the villagers' resolve intertwined with Hezekiah's flickering hope. Would this bond save them, or would it slip away like sand through their fingers? The moment hung in the balance, and for Hezekiah, it was now or never. As the Titan hissed and lunged again, shadows like claws reaching to grasp him, Hezekiah faced forward, ready for whatever came next. The emptiness within him filled with determination, and he embraced the unknown that loomed closer. Would they rise together, or would the darkness consume not just him, but all he held dear? As Hezekiah braced himself against the charging Titan, he felt the pulse of his people behind him, stronger than any fear that trembled in the air. Their collective strength swirled together like a tempest, lifting him higher, filling him with an indomitable energy. It was a feeling akin to conquering the fear of the abyss. He could almost taste the adrenaline mixed with hope. Now! He bellowed, raising his arms as a rallying call. We harness this light together. Let our faith pierce the darkness. The crowd responded, a wave of energy flowing through them, igniting the night like wildfire. Each person's spirit converged, intertwining with the light Hezekiah had summoned. Their shared hopes became a beacon that illuminated the shadows, casting vibrant rays that shot into the oncoming storm. The Titan faltered, a flicker of doubt in its monstrous eyes. It recoiled, as if trying to shrink away from the brilliance they unleashed, but the darkness was quick to lash back. With a deafening roar, the Titan erupted forward, a mass of obsidian fury. Hezekiah's heart raced, and he could feel the hot breath of terror washing over him. He took a deep breath. Stand fast, he instructed, his voice steadier than he felt. This is our moment. We ride the storm together. With every ounce of determination, Hezekiah thrust his hands forward. The radiant light expanded, fusing into a magnificent wave that surged against the Titan. It crashed into the dark entity like an unstoppable force, illuminating the sky with a blinding brilliance. The Titan screeched, its form writhing under the assault, shadows ripping away as if they were mere illusions. But just when victory seemed within their grasp, the Titan roared back, a cacophony reverberating through the ground. You fight against the inevitable. It bellowed, its voice trembling with a dark fury. I will only grow stronger. Yet Hezekiah felt no quaking fear, just a fierce conviction pulsating within him. No! You cannot extinguish our light. In that moment, he recalled the faces of his loved ones, the laughter of children, the hopes of a collective tomorrow. With renewed vigor, he urged them on. Channel your strength. Know that love conquers all. The villagers followed suit, each utility of their spirit building upon the next like a powerful crescendo. The air crackled. Miracles can happen in a shared heartbeat. Together, they raised their arms to the heavens, creating an ethereal shield of light that encased their king, their protector. And as it grew, the Titan flinched and staggered, shadows unraveling from its core. The momentum shifted, and the air was alight with purpose. This is our home. We will fight for it. Hezekiah's cry echoed through the chaos, igniting flames of courage in hearts once gripped by despair. The Titan screeched again, but this time it was a sound of fear. With one final push, they unleashed everything. The light roared forward like a tidal wave, overwhelming the Titan. With a heart-stopping screech, the darkness fragmented and shattered, 1,000 shards of shadow bursting apart, whisked away like smoke. Hezekiah stood firm, holding the light high, a living monument against the raging storm. As the Titan dissolved into the night, as the last remnants of darkness faded, silence enveloped the castle. Hezekiah lowered his arms, panting, adrenaline still coursing through his veins. The villagers erupted into cheers, a symphony of hope ringing loud against the night sky. Faces lit with joy, tears of relief and gratitude mingling with laughter. He had done it, the kingdom was saved from the precipice of despair, but he also felt a bittersweet pang in his heart. This battle may be won, he began, addressing the crowd, his voice tempered with the humility bestowed by adversity. But let us not forget what we have learned. Darkness may rise, but united we stand a force stronger than any fear. Today, we have forged a bond that must hold true in the times ahead. Murmurs of understanding rippled through the people as they embraced one another, a newfound connection blossoming among them. In that moment, Hezekiah felt a deep peace settle within him, a recognition of how far they had come together. As dawn began to break, the first rays of light painted the sky in hues of pink and gold. Hezekiah took a moment to inhale the crisp, serene morning air, reflecting on the journey that had brought him to this point. He had faced death and darkness, yet had risen as a symbol of hope, forged by sacrifice, forged by love. Let us rebuild, let us grow stronger, and above all, let us remember that in unity, we find our greatest strength, he declared, a fire in his heart strengthened by every face around him. With a mighty roar, the crowd echoed his sentiments, the sound of renewed life stretching across the fields. In the aftermath of the tumultuous night, Hezekiah was no longer just a king, he was a beacon of resilience, a thread woven into the fabric of a community that could overcome any trial. Together, they had truly defied death. The sun shone bright as it rose, illuminating the faces of those he cherished and turning a new page for themselves and their kingdom. They had embraced the dawn, and with that newfound light, they marched forward, ready to face whatever lay ahead, and in the end, with one last glance at the horizon, Hezekiah knew they were ready. Their journey was not simply about survival. It was about carving a future, illuminated by the indomitable spirit of those who dared to hope. So if you loved this story and want to follow where these incredible journeys lead next, you need to subscribe immediately. Don't miss a single moment. This is the time to show your support to the channel. Smash that like button right now, feed the algorithm so more tales like this can reach eager hearts. And flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories about this ending. What did you think of Hezekiah's choices? What would you have done differently? Let us get a conversation buzzing. And don't wait even one more second, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let them join our amazing community, where stories come alive.